Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. The Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, testified today before the Senate Intelligence Committee and, as expected, strongly denied that he has had secret or improper interactions with the Russian government.
The suggestion that I participated in any collusion, that I was aware of any collusion with the Russian government to hurt this country, which I have served with honor for 35 years, or to undermine the integrity of our democratic process, is an appalling and detestable lie.
Well, that's what he claims. It's always possible that a high-level Russian defector will appear sometime in the future with documents proving that Jeff Sessions is, in fact, a foreign agent, perhaps of a sleeper cell sent to Alabama during the Cold War and activated at Vladimir Putin's request during the last election. That would be a game-changer. Otherwise, the Russia conspiracy seemed to hit a cul-de-sac this afternoon in the Senate. But that doesn't mean there are no scandals for Congress to investigate. Here's one, maybe the biggest one of all. Our intel services are corrupt, and they're politicized, and they're making it very hard to run the U.S. government. And that may be the point, since they'd clearly like to run it themselves, and they are to some extent. Does that sound like overstatement? Well, consider how much of American politics now revolves around information that's been strategically, often misleadingly and illegally released for political effects. The hearings you watched today are just one example. They took place in part because former FBI Director Jim Comey told senators last week that Sessions may have met Russian Ambassador Kislyak at the Mayflower Hotel in Washington last April. Now, why would Comey think that? Because classified surveillance of Kislyak's conversation suggested it may have happened. That was surveillance released in order to hurt Jeff Sessions, and that, by the way, was apparently false. There are many more examples of this, every day practically. In December, unnamed intelligence sources told the Washington Post that Russia helped Donald Trump win the presidency. A week later, unnamed senior intelligence officials told NBC News that Putin personally was involved in helping Trump win. In February, current and former American officials released the details of a phone call between incoming National Security Advisor Mike Flynn and Ambassador Kislyak of Russia. That call was monitored because Kislyak was being spied on. Flynn's name should have been concealed, of course, but it wasn't. It was unmasked and then leaked, and his career and reputation were subsequently destroyed by all that. Trump's private phone call with the president of Mexico, surveilled by American intelligence and then leaked. His call with the Australian Prime Minister, same thing. With Vladimir Putin, again, leaked by the intel community. How could this possibly have advanced American national security interests, which is what they're supposed to be doing? None of it did. It was entirely political. And then in March, as if to prove this point, a half-dozen current and former intel officials told the New York Times how they'd sought to spread classified intelligence information about the Trump campaign as widely as possible throughout government to ensure it would all eventually leak. Now, leaks are as old as government, and sometimes they are welcome. In general, the public ought to know a lot more about government than it does. But we're seeing something new at work here. These are not leaks from political appointees, the kind that form the basis of Bob Woodward's books, the kind we benefit from in journalism a lot. These are strategic leaks, the release of classified intelligence from people whose job it is to collect and safeguard that intelligence. And in that way, it's an utter perversion of the system. We give enormous power to our intelligence agencies, CIA, NSA, the rest of them. We let them listen to our phone calls, read our email, watch us from satellites. We let them do that so they can keep us safe from foreign threats, not so they can pick our political leaders or devise our policies. We have elections to do those things. In a democracy, we're in charge, not them, not unelected bureaucrats. That's changing, and we ought to be worried about that change. But Congress isn't worried because a lot of people there would rather have the policies they prefer than constitutional government. That is worse than immoral. It's a mistake. Once the bureaucracy has shoved aside an elected government, they can easily do it again. And at that point, it's over. Democracy is dead.